All right, that wasn't very long of a break. We got our next round up. This is the finals for the Illustrious Cards and Games Tour Regionals. I am Jeremy Jalen here with Joe Brown, and it has been a great day so far. And what a better way to finish it off other than a Rob Lucci versus Red Purple Law finals.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun today. I think these early weeks in new formats are always exciting because people learn new things, people learn new ways to play certain decks or how to build certain decks, opening people's eyes to different strategies they might thought of before. But we did go into today expecting probably Rob Lucci and Red Purple Laws, the two best decks in the format. You could probably make an argument for an L or Black Yellow Luffy, but it is very fitting, Jeremy, that we get Lucci versus Law to end the day.
Yeah, it is going to be a good one for sure. Now, I am a fan of Red Purple Law. I know it's been the bane of people's existence, seeing everything that's happened over in the East, but it's still a good interactive deck. It's just that ability is so strong, and every time they print a red or purple character that is able to be used with that ability, you always have to be like, okay, why did they print this card?
Yeah, definitely. I'm also a fan of your Red Purple Law because I copied my 50 in set 6 off of your 50 for Law. So we're gonna have to touch base again in set 7 and figure out what our optimal 50 of Law is. But I do think it's a really strong leader. I think there are definitely struggles that Red Purple Law can face as the players fist bump to get started, especially with consistency. Right, sometimes you might open your hand with 3 Gordons and and no draw power and hardly any counter, or you get a whole bunch of draw power but no Don ramp and no minus strength characters. So Red Purple Law, sometimes it can play itself into really tough positions if you don't draw properly.
Well, Kesu, our Rob Lucci player, had that turn one spandom, was almost going for that 2K counter in the Khalifa, but opted for that 4-drop Rob Lucci, which is so good if you're able to get those minuses against that Red Purple Law. But discards a Rob Lucci and the Gecko Moria off the top of the deck with the leader.
And the Ennies lobby being played here. So these are a perfect first 2 turns that Kesu can ask for as the Lucci player. The turn 1 Spandam, when you're on 1 Don, you have your Searcher, and then getting the Ennies lobby the first turn you can play it. This now gives you at minimum 3 Don or 3 costs that you can minus every single turn. And the spoilers, most of Law's characters are not higher than 3, 4, or 5 costs in the deck. So 2 to 3 Don every turn 2 to 3 cost every turn of reduction is pretty much exactly what you need to KO a character.
Oh yeah, for sure. When the entire deck is 5 or less, it kind of just folds to an early stage if your opponent can get just consistent removal. And we see here K91 plays down that Mr. 2, gets the ramp, swings for 6, gets the life out, and that is it though. You have this Mr. 2 that doesn't really get a good swing off so far, and Kesu definitely doesn't have to play anything to the board.
Right. This is also a matchup where the opposing leader doesn't often go big, right? You don't usually attach Don to Lucci. So sometimes they're also, besides the Gecko Moria, unless you play an Isho, there's not a lot of big bodies as well for the Bonclay to take advantage of. Maybe if Stussy was played, but they got trashed. Here you could try to copy the Stussy strength and swing with it, but there's not a lot of big bodies on Lucci's end. So I think K91 might be valuing the Don ramp more than the secondary effect that Bonclay has of kind of mimicking another character's strength.
Now, we did see the Stussy discard. How do you feel that card is in this meta? To me, it kind of seems underwhelming a little bit compared to the other options you have.
I agree that Stussy is underwhelming because it's the opposite of the 8 cost Sabo, where Sabo you have to trash a card from your hand, but Stussy you have to KO one of your own characters in order to trash any card in the game. I think it's underwhelming, but I've been testing a lot of different Lucci matchups, and I think it's at minimum you got to have one in there for emergency situations. And if that's how Keisu also feels, then your one Stussy is pretty much gone for the whole game. You're gonna have to try to find a way around it. But against K91, against this Law deck, it's not like there's a 10 cost Dofi or 10 cost Ace
Yeah.
or 9 cost Yamato. So it's not the end of the world to lose your Stussy.
Well, this is the thing that K91 needs to start doing, and that's drawing cards. You play so much draw power in this red purple law with that 4-drop Reiju and this 5-drop blocker Queen. Just being able to see as many cards as possible, just so you can flood the board and eventually try to end the game with 2 Kitten Killers.
Right, that's definitely the most important is it really sometimes some cards when you play four ofs you're just happy when they show up because you want them consistently. But it really does matter when Law gains the Gordons and range maxes, right? At what part of the game you have it available, and when you get your Kitten Killers. Because if you get it too early, your opponent's not going to be at 2 life and you're not going to get the 7k power. And it's a counterless card in your hand. You pretty much only want to play it off the leader and make sure you swing for 7 with it. So it's one of those cards that has a kind of limited areas of use when you want to use it.
Well, I think K91 got the hint and played down a Reiju off of the Law ability after using a Gordon to bottom deck that 5 cost Sabo and drew 4 cards that turn. Only had to discard one of them, and then even discarded a 2K to save that Mister 2 from the Spandom attack. I mean, you have a bunch of cards in your hand, might as well use them. And now this might force Keisu to try to take down that Bon Clay before these Gecko Moria start hitting the board.
Yeah, I think that's something that most people probably wouldn't say of the Monclay since it's such low power. And you look on the other side, there are no high power characters for Monclay to be copying their strength on. But if you think about it, as if K91 can keep as many characters on the board as possible, going as wide as possible in this matchup, that's less characters per turn that Lucci can KO. Where if he just let Bonclay go down, the next turn, Lucci's very easy with Ennie's lobby and other characters cards available. You can just try to double KO Queen and the Reiju and wipe your entire board. But now when you keep 3 characters on the field, it's not as easy to have a complete board wipe.
All right, so we see there the Rob Lucci, it was 7 into that Mr. 2. The Queen got minus, the Queen blocked, and then we saw 2K Otama. But now we have a Tempest Kick. It's going to -3 the Mr. 2 here. You had the Ennie's Lobby minus the Queen down to 2. No, we're actually going to minus the
The Reiju.
Reiju and then get a +1 off of this Rob Lucci. And this is why the stadium is so good in this matchup.
Absolutely. I mean, it's completely changed. It's warping the match there because Casey would have to either play a Helmeppo from hand, which you need to have from hand, and Kashidan or a Suru or something like that. But just having Ennie's Lobby on the field at all times, giving you that additional two cost reduction into an opponent that most of the card, I think it's like 24 or 25 of the 50 cards are 4 costs usually when you add up all the Bonclays and the Sachi Penguins and the Kid and Killers and everything in the deck. It's literally almost half the deck is a 4 cost. Ennie's Lobby is by itself for just that original 2 Don cost, bringing half of K91's deck into Rob Lucci range.
Yeah, and stage removal is essentially non-existent in the game
Right.
right now. There's a couple cards that manipulate stages, maybe get rid of a 1-cost stage that your opponent has, but they're not played. This Ennie's Lobby is every turn. I'm going to target down the best character you have and get rid of it.
Look at that, counting the amount of cards in the trash for Keisu and make sure he's at 10 to activate the Tempest Kick, because that's really the big kicker that you need.
Literally, yeah.
And that's what K91 needs to know to play around it, right?
Yeah, well, I guess the one benefit for K91 is that there's 3 Tempest Kicks in the trash for Keisu. So you just have to worry about that one, but if your opponent has it, they have it.
Right. And Rebecca can't get Tempest kickback. She can get Lucci, she can get Spandine and some other things, but you can't get the event cards back with Rebecca.
Leader takes out the Spandam, and we might just see some ramp here. Mr. Two, a second one, probably not going to attack with the first one either. Maybe play down these raise maxes that are in the hand, but no, we are going to attack. Copy the Lucci, go to 6K, then the Dawn, you're at 7.
It's so tough to play down Raise Max or Gordon against Lucci because you want to have it for the following turn, but also, it's just a free KO from anything in their deck. So you can only play it on turns that you know you're going to get value out of it.
Well, this is pretty valuable here. Going to use that law effect, bottom deck that Lucci, and that's probably the best place for these Rob Lucci's to end up for K91 is on the bottom of the deck.
Yeah, for sure. The previous bottom deck that Law used was to bottom deck the Sabo, which is also one of the best things you can do because he gets around KOs and stuff to be bottom decked. And you can play that. Sanji is one of the cards that has brought Red Purple Law up into this tier 0 or one of the best decks in the format, being a 6-cost character that if you have two or fewer, I should say, Don than your opponent, that 6-cost Sanji counts as a 3-cost, which allows your leader to play it for free. It's a 2K counter. It costs 3 less than it's supposed to, and it also is a blocker. So there's just so much value all packaged in one card.
Yeah, also has 6K attack.
Right.
So can just start swinging as well and just keep that pressure going. But you have to kind of think if you're in Keisu's position, they're playing a Sanji off of the Red Purple Law ability. Maybe that hand's getting a little lackluster.
Yeah, the blockers could potentially just be to buy time, and you've only played one Reiji, you played the one Queen, no Miss All Sundays. Not sure if K91 has it in their deck or not. So you've not been able to chain draw power the way that some laws really prefer to keep that momentum by having multiple draws in a row.
All right, well, there we see the Lucci attack, milling a couple cards, minusing on that active Mr. 2, and swinging into that tapped Mr. 2, but just the Sanji block and a discard of that 1K counter should be enough to keep it so far, but there's that Ennie's Lobby. Here's another Ennie's Lobby, and we're going to have another Rob Lucci come down and clear out 2 Mr. 2s this time.
2 Mr. 2s at the same time. It's one of my favorite plays when you can double Ennie's Lobby on a turn, but it also just feels so dirty when you when you do it because you're like, oh man, I'm getting 4 cost minus for the cost of 2 because the Ennie's Lobby was already there from a previous turn. Like it's so strong.
Now this Spandam did not hit anything. Milled a 2K, a Rebecca, cards you kind of want in the hand, but not able to get that plus off the Spandam.
So many cards in the trash.
Yeah, it's insane. And I think K91 has another Raise Max in hand, so we can see another Rob Lucci go to the bottom of the deck. But is there a good follow-up for it? Is there even a play with the Dawn right now?
Casey only has 2 cards in hand as well. So it's kind of a tough call if you want to try to go into lead. Those 3 life, you're giving Casey more cards in hand. Could be an extra get, could be other things. So I think makes a lot of sense. Just build up your hand size, build up your board and your safety of 2 blockers compared to giving Kesu the cards that he's desperately looking for right now.
Now, K91 did have this Queen minus the Dawn to draw 2, discard 1, discards that Raise Max, but now there's not enough Dawn to actually play down that Raise Max and get full value out of your leader ability. And we might just see
You can
of
always
past
bottom the
here.
Span Dam, so you can
It never
obviously
feels nice though.
it doesn't, and you can also use Red Purple Law's ability without bottom decking anything just to play a card. But probably K91 feeling it's not worth it to lose 3 Don. Plus, you lost a Don already with Queen this turn, so you'd be losing 4 Don on that turn.
Yeah, and you're already at 4 Dawn right now. Maybe even take this opportunity just to get some cards from life,
Right.
as Keisu doesn't really have much in hand. You just have those 2 cards.
Three cards in K91's hand compared to K2's 2 cards. So if you take a couple swings here, maybe stay at 1 life, K91, you can go up to 5 cards in hand. With your draw, the next turn would be 6. That'd be a pretty sizable difference, sizable advantage.
It's looking like Keisu's trying to do the math here. Full access to the 10 Dawn. Gonna use 2 of them, swing for 7. Can anyone has 2 6K blockers. But honestly, I kind of want to take this life. Just get the extra card. Wow, another Gecko Moria in the discard.
8 Don is still untapped for K2, so K91 has to think, is a Gecko coming? Is a Sabo coming?
Oh, I think the Gecko's coming all right.
There it
Yep.
is.
The third one of the game, it seems. But the first actual Gecko to hit the board for Keisu here. Gonna mill another
There's the
Gecko.
last Gecko.
Well, I think the other one's on the bottom now, but here is that play. The Spandine really opening up this deck late game. You just get to reuse so many of those CP9 and CP0 resources like Rob Lucci, the Khalifa, and there is that Rob Lucci yet again taking the Queen out of play. And this board's looking pretty scary.
Also, one of the other big nice factors that this super valuable Sanji blocker has is that it costs 3 in your hand, but then it goes back to being a 6 cost on the field. So it's much harder to KO both Queen and Sanji on the same turn.
Yeah, it does state only -3 cost in hand. But again, it's Sanji versus the world right now. And it's a Rob Lucci world we're living in.
Sorry, bro. My bad, man.
It's even tough for K91. He took 1 card, the 1 life. So 1 swing was used to take life, and then the rest of K2's hand was used to KO the Queen. But you can't even go for game this turn because, or it'd be very difficult, I should say, to go for game because there are 3 life on the other end. Usually, Rob Lucci doesn't have really strong triggers. Besides like Ennis Lobby playing itself, right? There's not a lot of strong triggers, so you don't have to worry about getting kind of screwed over with triggers. But you would be giving him cards in hand, giving to Keisu, which means it's more likely for them to be able to counter out of your swing. So it's a tough call. How you want to handle this? Any of a low, was it 5 cards in hand? It looks like more now.
Yeah, you really just try to have to go for the board this turn and then hope that you have enough characters that stick with Keisu's 1 card in hand to be able to kind of turn things around and start swinging for life the following turn. 2 cards off the Reichu here is definitely going to help. And with the 2 Dawn left over, so you have 1 Dawn for that raise max in hand already. K91 has been discarding a couple of them, but still has access to that minus ability. You can get rid of the active Lucci and then try to swing into that tapped Lucci and hope to just clear those kind of resources from Keisu's board.
It almost feels unfair sometimes. I don't want to say law feels unfair because the Rebecca can just block that attack into Lucci, and no matter what you do, Law can only bottom deck 1 card a turn. Meanwhile, Keisu can can KO 2 cards at once with the 4 cost Rob Lucci. So it's like even if you're trying to clear their board, you're only getting rid of 1 card as they're getting rid of 2. So smartly attacking the force the Rebecca blocker, then playing the raise max to -3K the Rob Lucci.
Oh, and we get the Kid and Killer off of the red purple law ability. Now, I do kind of like swinging. If you're gonna swing anyway, swing before the ability to try to see if Keisu responds to that first one,
Right.
especially if you have Kid and Killer. But it worked out for K91, and now Keisu has 3 cards in hand and 2 life, and with really just a Gecko Moria in play along with that stage.
K9 also has no blockers, and I think 3 cards in it. It's off screen right now, but I think it's 3 cards in hand.
Now with this 6 here, could be swinging into the Kid and Killer and minusing the Reiju. I think just minusing the Kid and Killer.
Oh, it's 4 cards in hand. So
I didn't really get a
knows
glimpse, but
not very likely to go for game because you'd be giving him 6 cards, and very likely that K91 would be able to counter out. So go after the Kid and Killer. Go after the the rested Sanji as well, so he doesn't have access to that blocker in following turns.
hey, you also have to realize K91's down to 3 Dawn right now. So not really a lot to work with. Gonna basically be playing 2 cards a turn, essentially for the rest of the game. Has to get rid of an Otama there to save that Kid and Killer. Now Gecko into the Sanji. This is gonna clear a blocker as well as an attacker.
And I have 9 Dawn.
No, you're good, Brady.
You pretty much have to give up your entire hand
Yeah.
to block this. I think K91 thinking of future decisions, not necessarily this decision, because that one's such a clear cut. You have to let that attack go through.
Oh, and this is just so rough. Getting back the Brook
Oh.
after the attack and the Ennie's lobby, and then a Sabo blocker on top of it. Now you have 2 blockers to try and stabilize this board and take down K91 on the next turn. And with just 5 Dawn to play with.
Just 5 Dawn. The one thing that Law does have that Keisu doesn't is rush characters, either that being the Kid and Killer or a Zoro. But that is pretty much going to use up your entire hand to play, right? So it's looking really dangerous with 2 blockers on Keisu's side with the Rebecca and Sabo, as well as 2 life. Even if you play 2 rush attackers, it still wouldn't be enough. You would need a 5th attack on this turn to get through. Only 1 card in Keisu's hand, so might be safer for K91 to go for board, knowing that your potential 5K or 6K, your minimum attacks could probably KO the board, since Keisu does not have the counter power in hand to stop it.
Yeah, but you cannot even target down that Gecko Moria. It's just too large.
Right.
And he opts to use the red purple law effect to bottom deck that Rebecca. The only real value you can get out of it. But you do get 1 back with that Eustace Captain Kid, and put down a Shariah into play, which could be a good block next turn. We have 6 into Brook here.
And then all he has left is the 5K swing from
Sorry, my good sir.
Rage. Not even going to go for it.
Oh, wow. Okay. Just keep that character in play to try to push for game next turn. You have to hope this blocker sticks, and I don't think it's going to stick.
And Shariah is immediately at 1 cost. You play 2 blockers, and just immediately Lucci goes right after him. And 0 cost. Yeah.
Just like that, this Brook is going to be able to take down that Shariah and put some pressure on K91's life or hand.
So I think that's why we were both surprised with the Reiju not attacking into Brook, since Brook gets the free minus value. That if you play a 3 cost, inherently Ennie's lobby plus Brook swinging will ensure that your Shariah never actually gets to block. and he only had one card in hand. So unless it was a 2K on Keisu's hand, the Reiju swing would have potentially went through.
Well, here we
Bottom lane
have
minus the Reiju?
5
Sure.
to life. Lucci is going to -1 the Reiju here. And there's 8 Dawn left over for Keisu. Definitely could just be bluffing a big Moria play, but, you know, with how often we've seen Lucci, they almost always have it.
Yeah, and the addition now, there's other 8 costs. Isho is an 8 cost. Sabo is an 8 cost. Seems like they play 6 or 7 8 cost characters now in the Rob Lucci list. But for sure, the most valuable of them is Lucci. I mean, even in this spot, I think it's only, K91 only has 2 cards in hand, so that 8 Don could be, you know, spread around the field, maybe making the Gecko and the Spandam swings really strong if Keisu wants to go for game now. But you can't because you only have 2 swings remaining, and K91 has the kid blocker.
Yeah. Now, depending on the hand, it still could be worth it just to clear the board as much as possible. You'd be forced to commit at least 4 Dawn to the Spandam. Here is 4. We got a Kaku. It's going to -3. -3 the kid. Do we have another Lucci? Oh my lord.
If they had a Suru, they could have KO'd both characters at once, but just definitely make sure you get rid of that blocker kid before you swing with the Gecko.
Yeah.
So I mean, Keisu's playing so well these last 2. They're not even swinging with Gecko once you can't counter back into it. But if that's a miracle card that K91 needs to try to win this game, now he's not going to have access
I
to
think
it.
I got it.
Yeah, the 3 Kitten Killers needed.
See what happens here.
Yeah.
Not play K Killer, man.
0
Wins it
cards
real
in
bad.
hand. 0 blockers
3,
in
4, 2,
play for
5
Can't see
Dawn.
what
Keisu.
that is. I didn't swing.
5 Dawn to work with. You have 2 attacks. Is there a Kitten Killer in the hand? That's basically what it's coming down to.
Right. That's what, because that would be 7. Okay, so 5 at Brook, not at the Life.
I think with that attack, you know there's not a Kitten Killer in hand.
Right. Because if you had Kid and Killer, you go 5 at Life, one card in hand, 7 from Kid and Killer to guarantee the hit, and then the rest of your Don onto the Rage you're trying to win. But double -3K on the Gecko and bottom decking it. Rage
Yeah,
Max and Gordon. They're like peanut butter and jelly, Jeremy.
I'm pretty sure they're like peanut butter and peanut butter because they both do the same thing. But there you have it. Keisu taking down
I
the
was so
Illustrious
worried
Cards
about
and
the Killer.
Games One Piece
Killer was
Store
a game.
Regional with
God,
Rob
I
Lucci
played-
just
I seen that on the board.
overwhelming
That gives you an extra
K91
dollar.
with
No, if you leave this on
the
the board
board
and like you don't have
there.
anything to comment,
And
the
yeah,
fact that you got
when your
Lucci was
opponent
last
is playing
card
Red Purple
three.
Law and they're not playing
How
a
many
character
Luccis do I
down
have to
off
run
that
through,
effect,
bro? Holy shit,
you
man.
have to
my
be
entire
feeling
deck.
pretty good. And right there,
How many
Keisu's feeling like a champion.